Hey guys, Michael here. I've got a pretty quick and easy one for you here today. However, I want to be clear, this is not necessarily a mod that I recommend. In fact, it's one that I will not be using myself for the time being. However, I did want to bring it to your attention because I think there are changes in this that I think some of you will like, just not everybody will like. So this is the Diplomacy, Logic, and Balance by Katsuko. This is the same gentleman, the same modder who did the auto-resolve changes. And I want to call attention to a couple of things on this mod page that he mentions here. So the first one is that he does say it's constantly being improved. Please help perfect it. The mod is undergoing development aiming to refine and elevate diplomacy in Total War Warhammer 3, which is, of course, I think an admirable goal. I made a video a few days ago which were basically talking about some advanced tips for diplomacy, but that was of course using vanilla diplomacy. And one of the things that came up in that particular video was how powerful the trade settlement function is in vanilla diplomacy. Now keep that in the back of your mind as I start talking about this. So anyway, back to what he's writing here, to what he writes here. This is basically he's looking for feedback. So I have provided him a little bit of my feedback. I think some others have as well in the comments section, but I did want to call attention to that because that's a positive sign when a mod author is actively looking for feedback. The other thing that I want to mention is that it is compatible with other mods like AI mods. And then in terms of what does it do? It rebalances almost every core diplomatic factor, including treaty evaluations, relationship impact from war, betrayal and broken deals, cultural, racial, and historical modifiers, smarter AI attitudes, no more instant trust between swore enemies. So, again, most of these things are a little bit abstract, but I think they make sense the way that he writes them here. Now, I'll talk about some of the examples in game itself and why I'm currently not going to be using this for myself. But with a little bit of tweaking, I think that this mod might end up being very, very nice, at least for me. And like I said, I think there's going to be some things that some of you like. So let's go ahead and jump right into how it looks in game itself. And the main thing that I want to call attention to here, I've got a couple examples of this. It's definitely making it much more difficult for the player to abuse the AI. Now, I mentioned in that video from a few days ago that I consider it manipulating the AI, but if as a player you feel like it's too easily abused, that you're too powerful in terms of using some of these diplomacy tools to manipulate the AI, then you might really like this mod because it is definitely going to have a big effect on that. So here we are as Helman Ghorst, and the two things that I tried to do is I did not want to end up going to war with Grease's Goldtooth until I was done with Kugath. So I tried my usual trick of offering to join his wars. In this particular case, I wanted to join a war against Crossed Clubs, which is another minor ogre faction. And in doing so, believed, hey, I will get some improved relations with Goldtooth, make it less likely that he'll declare war on me. And so what this mod has done, I think it's based on this relationship modifier here, this negative relationship I have with Greasus. When I come in and I offer to join that war, he actually wants me to pay him money in order to join his war. Now, obviously, I don't have to do that. I could join the war on my own, except I'm not really joining the war. I'd just be declaring war. But yeah, so you can't use this to get money from another faction by joining them in a war against a common enemy. Which may or may not make sense to you. It doesn't really make sense to me, but it is something that could be abused as a way to just get extra money. However, this is the bigger one as far as I'm concerned, is the trade settlement. I actually offered to give him Shambletown here, which is a settlement that you would think that Greasus would value because it's an ogre settlement that I took from a different faction. And yeah, he is absolutely against the idea of me giving him a settlement. So he wants so much money in addition to the settlement for me to give him the settlement that I can't afford to do it. So that felt a little off to me. I understand, again, not wanting the player to be able to abuse the trade settlement mechanic, but to me, this feels like it probably needs to be retuned. But I was very curious because this is, of course, a situation where Greasus has a negative relationship with me. So I thought, okay, well, maybe it's just that he doesn't want to do business with me at all because he doesn't really like me. Now, he's not, it's not the worst relationship in the world, but it's definitely a negative relationship. But I decided to see what would happen if I did the same thing with two factions who don't hate each other. So I decided to try it again here with an Emperor Karl Franz campaign. So I come down, I end up defeating the beginning enemy here. I come down and I take Grunberg. I offer to join, and then I talk to Elspeth, and I offer to join her war against Court of Night here. This is a minor vampire faction that she starts out at war with, and lo and behold, this time it's much better. Now again, Elspeth likes me, so she is willing to give me a little bit of money for me to join her war against her enemy. So that's good. That's a positive sign. So it does, in fact, it leads me to believe that the reason why Greasus didn't want to do it with Ghorst was just because he didn't like me, which, there's some sense to that. However, this is still an issue as far as I'm concerned. This is me offering to give Grunberg to Elspeth. This is an imperial settlement on her border, of course, otherwise I wouldn't be able to offer it to her. And yes, she just flat out wants me to give her money in addition to the settlement. So very clearly what this has done is it has nerfed the trade settlement function for the player, which in some ways from a playability standpoint, I can respect that because it is a very, very powerful thing that the player can do that could be abused, that can certainly manipulate enemies in ways that thematically might not make too much sense. However, I think you can see here that we've kind of thrown the baby out with the bathwater where you can't do it at all. You've basically completely taken away this functionality because no player is ever going to give away a settlement plus money to another faction. It just that doesn't really make too much sense there to me. So anyway, my thoughts on it. Let me know what you think. Am I looking at this incorrectly? It does look to me like what the player has, or I'm sorry, what the mod author has done in this particular situation has taken away some functionality here that the player should have access to. Possibly because it's too easily abusable, possibly for some other reason, but to me this doesn't really feel like it's a realistic improvement on diplomacy. However, I like many of the other things that this mod does try to do. It's a little bit hard to see exactly what it's doing because a lot of it's happening under the hood. But yeah, if this gets tweaked, then I could see definitely trying this diplomacy mod out. In the future, it would be nice to have an option in terms of something different than vanilla, because we all get used to what the vanilla diplomacy system is, and the more you get used to something, as I've mentioned before with AI, the more it can be abused by the player. So having a little bit of variety, having a little bit of unpredictability is always a good thing, and of course having options is always a good thing as well. So I appreciate the work that the mod author has done to this point. I do feel like it could still use a little bit of tweaking here, but I did want to go ahead and call this to your attention because I think there might be some players out there who don't really mind the trade settlement functionality being pretty much off limits at this point and still want to give this one a shot. So that's all I have for you. Anyway, please, like I said, let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any experience with this particular mod. Let me know if there's any other mods that you want me to cover. And with that, I will go ahead and say thank you all so much for watching and listening, and I will see you all in the next video.